for starting on today. Okay. I thought about a subject. I find like as leaders, as coaches, as entrepreneurs, we tend to see ourselves simply as kind of what we are. Okay, we define ourselves from what we do. The way I see it now is like we are force multipliers. So a force just generally, it's something that can change the speed and the velocity of something else. Okay. And to multiply is to amplify whatever we're giving, whatever is around us. Right. So as entrepreneurs, as coaches, as leaders, we are that force, okay, that takes something, whether it's an idea, whether it's people, whether it's a situation, okay, and we change the course of it. We change its speed, we change its velocity. And when it comes to multiplying, when we have our clients coming to us, we take what's best in them and we get to amplify it. We get to multiply so they can live their lives, to their full ability, reach personal mastery, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but how can we go from simply being a coach, entrepreneur, business leader to becoming that real force multiplier? For me, I find obviously there's a lot of different things, but it's operating in importance and significance rather than operating in urgency. A lot of people, what they do is that generally they operate in urgency. So they do what seems to matter right now, okay, as soon as they can right now, okay. But a lot of time they lose sight of what's truly important. So what actually really, really, really is important in terms of priority and what has true significance, not just for today, but for tomorrow. Okay, because when we operate in importance and significance, yes, we live today, we live our lives today, but every action that we take is actually compounding interest for what's going to happen tomorrow when we amplify what we're giving or when we amplify what we do. When we operate simply in urgency, we lose perspective. We lose sight of the overall, okay, of the actual goal we're actually trying to reach to. And we're just really slave to the moment and reacting to whatever comes. So the goal in the end is to live by design, as much as possible instead of living by default. And in order to do that, I believe it starts from, as much as possible, going away from urgency in our everyday lives and really focusing on importance and significance. Throwing the mic back at you.
We all take a note.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Glad to be here this morning. So this is a great concept. I really like it. And when I think about not working in urgency, what really resonates with me on that is that you're going to dictate and create your environment and not be dictated to, right? So, and if we are dictating the pace, dictating the outcomes, then the urgency becomes less necessary, right? Because we're handling what's important and what's significant. So we don't get into that urgency mode. Not that urgency doesn't occur from time to time, but it should be the exception, not the rule. The rule should be us dictating and creating our environment. And in order to understand what has importance and significance, we really have to have a great vision on who we want to be, who we are becoming, and what we are creating. It has to be very clear, crystal clear on that. And then from that, the actions, the thoughts that we have should map to those outcomes, And if it maps to those outcomes, then it has significance and then it has importance. If it doesn't map to those outcomes, then we're not living by design. We're off track. Okay. And a lot of people, unfortunately, in life get dictated to, and they're so busy putting out fires, the urgency side, and they're not living by design. And so they're neglecting things that are important, like their health, okay? Neglecting things that are important, like relationships, like networking, like building on their portfolio of knowledge. All these things, are very important and have a significant impact on outcomes. So in order to live by design, we have to have a plan, okay? We have to have a plan. And then that design needs to be looked at often, right? We've got to review that often. That's why you'll see people of accomplishment, they're reviewing their goals every day. They're reviewing their plan every day, okay? Am I still on track? I need to make some adjustments here, or is it full speed ahead? So it's a very intricate question. And I think that's a good way to jump off. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
I'll go then. Exactly. I think what you were saying, I was listening to the part about where you said the ripple. I was thinking about the ripple in the pond, and how when you do drop that pebble in the pond, it starts off this small. And then if you don't know and live on purpose, and you don't really understand or think about what's going to happen 20 feet out, 30 feet out. I mean, what started off as that little drop right there, if you're living in urgency, you don't have the time to think about what does it mean 10 feet, 30 feet, 80 feet away. You know what I mean? You don't know what it means 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the line, because you've been living in urgency. When you take time and think about it, you can plan out. You're not just planning for today. It's like chess. What does this move mean 3 moves from now? And one of the things I thought about that was weird enough was Newton's law of motion when you were saying that. And it said a body at rest will stay at rest, and the body, unless acted upon by outside force, and the body in motion at a constant velocity will remain in motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an outside force. And so is our lives when we're making decisions, even whether they're good or bad. We can't figure out why people, even in your business world, why do they business struggle? Why do they keep doing the same thing? Because by law, it says an object in motion will remain at a constant velocity unless something happens, unless somebody else, which may be us, maybe your mentor, maybe something in that sense of urgency. That's all people know. That's how they make decisions. That's how they move. And unless we introduce something else, whether that be us or a book or an example or something, think about it. That's the way things will go. You stay in urgency and get away from significance. But if you've never known to focus on significance, that's just the path you take. You know what I mean? And so when we look at that law, we think about things moving around, but even in our mental, our business, our social, those things will stay the same and move exactly the same in a straight line unless you meet someone that can help you make that jump from urgency to significance. Unless you meet someone that changed the way you think, change the way you move, change your associations, you have to have some kind of contact with something from the outside. I'll pass the mic.
Oh, there's so great input, everybody. There's a few things I wrote down here as you're leading into force multipliers, and that we are by nature. A leader is a force multiplier by nature, by the mere fact that you should be, practicing true leadership. You should be doing that. So I wrote here, micro decisions, that's a thing that's been a theme I've been talking about, the idea that our lives right now, everybody watching, your life right now is literally a series of micro decisions that got you to where you are right now. In that moment, that's why it's so essential for a leader to be, as you said, live by design, intentional, connected. And that comes from leaders, taking the time out. The other thing that I've been really vibing on lately is this idea of, and I challenge a group, as you remember in the group, Ray, another group we're in, I challenge a group that here's a challenge, how can we work less and leverage more from the time we spend, quote unquote, working? So some people would spend 8, executives run anywhere from 14 hours a day, the average executive, in order to make their money, 14, 15. Some never put the phone down. I was working with one man, and he would even be in the bathroom, and he's answering his phone, and emergency call, 2 a.m, 3. It's crazy, right? And yeah, he made some good money, decent money, but at what cost? He became ineffective, overwhelmed, ineffective, and he wasn't even leading his people properly. And eventually, I'm looking down the road for him, and I see a wall, the iceberg coming to his Titanic. So, because he's just not leading effectively. He's burnt out. He's put on a lot of weight. He's just not effective anymore. And that's coming from him having to say, I've got to do everything. I have to. It's up to me. I got to do everything. That's a tough place to be when you buy into that belief system. And no matter what I would say to him, he'd always have a comeback. Well, you don't understand my business. You don't understand. Okay. If you want to buy that, you can own that. So it's a series of micro decisions that got us to where we are today, anywhere in our lives. Or wait, we said we had a choice. I could get up and go work out, or just do it tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Our marriage, our personal, professional relationship, you name it. It's all micro decisions in the moment. And that's all we have actually is in a moment. We have snap decisions to make. Bark at somebody, or stop and listen, or, choose to go this way, don't go that way. I mean, it's just micro decisions. And to do those effectively, you really have to be in that flow state, the state of flow, which leads you to having more time. You want to have and I have to remember the stat. My mentor told me this, and he flips it out every so often, but now it's become, when the student's ready, teacher appears, I've now become keyed into this thing he keeps saying, that most of the top executives in the North America actually spend a ton of time in thought, in strategy, not so much working. And I'm reading a book right now called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And he's talking about that some people take that, and back in the day, I forgot which person used to go for think time, sitting with themselves in the cabin and just thinking. So in order for us then to be this force multiplier, we have to spend some time alone. We have to have that distance between us and the project, the work we're doing. Spend time, as Franklin Covey says in 7 Habits, in category 2, right? Where it's important but not urgent. The minute you start to spend time in category 1, urgent and important, you become ineffective, because everything's a problem. Every fire you're trying to put out. So that means you have to become intentional about your life. And this is where goal setting, as you're leading to, Ray, goal setting, living by design. I've always said that we're co-creating our lives, right? We don't have 100% control over anything. The only thing we have 100% control is our attitude, our ability to be intentional, our reaction to something, the space between stimulus and response. That little space between is where we have control, but otherwise you don't have control over anything. I was talking to a client of mine this week about that, coaching her on that, and she's anxious in her life because she needs control. And I was saying, listen, you don't have any control, by the way, and trust. You must be able to trust because, and I heard this from Tony Robbins. When you think about it, every day you may think you lack trust, but every day you drive that road, there's a yellow line. Is the only thing that you're hoping that the other person respects, and you trust that they have respect for that yellow line. Otherwise, you're done. Everyone's done. We have to trust. You trust in different ways. So anyways, living by design, getting into flow state where, time doesn't exist. And as you said, as we get older, as I get older, I'm going to say and I'm sure it applies to a lot of people. I'm now moving from, I used to make my goals about my kids and my family, but now I'm moving to the last two of the 6 human needs, which is significance and contribution. And I find I lost a little bit of motivation because I was focused on my circle, my tight circle, doing things for them, but now they've grown and that tight circle is kind of not as essential for me to build and do what I do. And they're self-sufficient now. So now I had to expand that to significance and contribution. What's my legacy? So, intentional living by design is so crucial because that's the only way as I said to you right before I got on, my quest is for personal mastery. That is my thing. It's always been my thing. I just discovered it, really and truly zeroed in, honed in on it this last 2021. I've been playing around the circle of it, but now I really found it. That everything I've ever done, every sport I've ever played, every challenge I've ever taken, it's to achieve this sense of mastery. And as Ray and I were talking before we got on, he was mentioning that I change up my platform design, and it's my indication that I'm getting closer to who I am. I want to always show up as authentic as I can be. There's always going to be a little bit of me that's not, because I was speaking to a client about this, that you're never going to be, when I show up on this platform today, I'm a little bit more than myself because I'm having to emote and give. So we all have to add a little bit of spice on top of ourselves, but you want to be as close to yourself as possible. So in closing, in order to be a force multiplier, we have to get to that point of, yes, intentionality. We have to get to that point of where we are aligned, living in the moment, constantly having space between stimulus and response, keeping that as much as possible. That way, when a stimulus comes in, you know how to respond to get the right outcome, but you can only do that when you're not under stress. When you're under stress, the space between stimulus and response really tightens and you react. How can you move from reaction to intentional? And that is the quest. Then you'll be a force multiplier just by showing up when you're intentional. So I'll spit some stuff out there. You guys can have that back. Let's see what we got.
That's good stuff. Definitely, all of you guys been taking a lot of notes. I'll just go back on one thing to get started. When Alvin, you just talked about being as close to yourself as possible, being intentional, living in the moment. I always like to give examples, but when my family and I moved to Canada, I remember the first winters were super hard for me. I wasn't ready for this. Kids were playing in the schoolyard, and I was in my big suit, just standing there wondering what the heck is going on right now. How is this so cold, you know? And I was famously known in my family so that whenever we had to go out and shovel snow, okay, my brothers would do very, very well, but me, like, I would find any excuses possible to go back home because I would be freezing, my fingertips, my toes, I just couldn't do it, right? So that was kind of like the running gag in my family, how, Ray, he doesn't really work hard, he doesn't want to do stuff, he's always trying to get out of stuff. So that's how I was when I was a kid. And my family, I remember also, they used to call me a groundhog, because if you didn't wake me up, I would sleep like all day. You know, I just would sleep and wake up grumpy, and that's who I was, right? So it happens to me like all the time. Just yesterday, I was at my parents' house, and I can tell they're just looking at me. You know, my mother is just looking at me, my dad is just looking at me, and they're like, wow, you know, like they can't comprehend how I was this, let's say, as a kid, and now I wake up so early now, I'm doing all these things, I'm reading books now, I'm doing like so many things that like, it's like two different people, right? And I'm 35 now, and I've realized that if I go back every 10 years, let's say from 25 to 15, I'm the same guy, but I'm a complete different person from every single decade because I've evolved so much. And why I'm saying this is because being as close to yourself as possible, being in the moment, is evolving, is peeling out layers as you evolve through your life journey and you get as close as possible to what's really important and to what has significance. Becoming the best version of myself every day has more important than anything that's urgent for me. You know, it's more important than that. Living with significance is more important than that. So just another example, we had a lot of snow yesterday. I guess that's why I came up with the first example, but we had a lot of snow yesterday. And man, I shoveled everything. I even went into the backyard. We had like this huge highway of like space, and my wife even comes to me and they're like, you know, you're so mature, you know, you gotten so mature ever since I met you, because again, we it's gonna be 18 years today. So we started dating, I was 17, 18, right? So she's seen like, and that's what we're realizing, is that we have to start seeing each other for what we can be, okay? Not necessarily for what we are. Because if she sees me as 18-year-old or 25-year-old, even 30-year-old Raymond, that's not who I am. You know, that's not who I am right now. And I evolve every single day. So it's about seeing ourselves for what we can be and trying to live up to that as much as possible, and we evolve. Okay, so coming back to the subject of being a force multiplier, I truly believe, and you're right, all of us touched on it a little bit, but we also have to give up certain things. You know, we talked about simplicity. The actual like definition of simplicity is uncomplicated, you know? And they say the more uncomplicated things are in your mind, in your life, the more expression of clarity that you get. Clarity is living as close as possible to our real selves, right? But in order to reach clarity, it's not about the lack of opportunity or the lack of things to do. It's about the peeling back of all these layers so we can come to what's really important and what has significance. But this is a choice, all right? This is a choice to give up on certain things and invest our time, our energy, and our priority on other things who really have importance and significance, not just for today, but also for tomorrow, for the future of what we can become tomorrow as we do these things. So now I say, okay, if we want to be practical, how do we do that? First step, I would say eliminate. Okay, what needs to get eliminated from your mind? That's number one. Self-limiting beliefs, fear, things that have been with you ever since you were a child. Like I could see myself, honestly, as this lazy kid, that's afraid of the cold, that doesn't want to do nothing. I could associate myself as that because naturally it's not my parents' fault, but that's what they associated me at because that's what I was, but that's not who I am today. Why? That was a choice, right? That was a choice to evolve from that. So I say, whatever we say yes to, I believe as leaders, we have to really understand that it means we're saying no to something else. So if I'm clear on who I want to be and what I need to do in order to become that, and I'm saying yes to that, that means I'm saying no to whatever is opposite of that. Okay? And vice versa. If I'm saying yes to all my self-limiting beliefs, to comfort all the time, to fear of reaching higher, reaching out to mentors, reaching out to different things, then I'm saying no to what I could be. And I'm saying no also to living my life by design. So the question is, which one do we choose to eliminate on a day-to-day basis with intentionality and with a plan? It all starts with a plan. We got to see it first, right? So we got to sit down and think. Then we got to decide and actually act on it. So that would be my main question for the audience, or for anyone who watches this on replay, is what do you need to eliminate right now? Okay, that every time you say yes to, it actually means that you're saying no to what you really, really, really want, what has really importance or significance for you. Every email that, like my mom, she's also in a management position. And, I talked to her yesterday and she tells me, she wakes up early in the morning, she looks at her emails, right? And I'm like, I never do that. Well, that's me. I never want to do that. Obviously, she has way more experience than me, but me, I never want to do that because why? That's my time. The first thing I'm doing is not opening my eyes and giving my energy away to other things that are urgent but not important. Quadrant 2 activities, as we said. No, I'm gonna fill my cup, and when it's overflowing, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna give the best of the best that I could give, to my team, to people that I'm serving, to my clients, whatever I'm doing, right? But that's the thing I had to eliminate, and it's written down intentionally, where mornings, cell phone needs to be put away, because if it's not, then it's too easy to do these things. I don't answer phone calls in the morning. People call me, I don't answer. And that's my time, right? So yeah, in practicality, I guess for me, that would be step one, is eliminate. Starts with eliminating and then go from there. So this is me and I'm passing the mic.
Yeah, this is such a great discussion. And as you were speaking, Ray, I thought about driving and how we get in the car, we just don't drive around. We have a destination in mind, right? And when we're driving, we eliminate things that take our focus from the road. Why? Because it's dangerous if we don't. And I'm sure in Canada is the same thing as in Kansas. You see every day examples of people that their focus is not where it should be. Their focus is not on the road, and they're driving sporadically, erratically, and dangerously, right? So I think things to eliminate are distractions that take our focus away from the road, right? We've got to eliminate those distractions, and we need to put more time and attention to where we're going, right? And so we're checking our mirrors every 3 to 5 seconds. It's important that we're keeping our vehicle centered, maintained on the roadway. We're watching what the traffic's doing. We're watching for landmarks so we can make shifts at the times that are necessary so that we arrive at our destination as quickly and safely as possible. So I think driving is just a great metaphor for what we're doing in life. And distractions are not insignificant. Distractions take our eye off the ball. Distractions can ultimately prevent us from ever arriving at our destination, at our goals. And when we get distracted, we are not living with intention, right? We're letting those things. So when you're talking about limiting your times to say, hey, you know what, this is my time, and so I'm going to limit distractions or eliminate them by not turning the cell phone on until a certain time, or not viewing emails until a certain time. That's really important, so that way, that time that you have set aside for yourself, you're using it intentionally, and you're going to get the maximum result and have the maximum impact with that time. So eliminating distractions has got to be at or near the top for all of us, because this world is full of distractions, and you can start internet surfing and look at the clock, and all of a sudden 2 hours has gone by. And the reality is, the people that want you to look at their marketing, look at their advertisement, they have designed those things to get you in flow so that 2 or 3 hours go by and you don't even realize it, because they want to keep you viewing, they want to keep you scrolling, they want to keep you on those pages. So we've got to understand that and overcome that by focus. And specifically, we can overcome that by focus, and we can overcome that by knowing what to focus on and when to turn that focus up to a higher level. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Well, guys, y'all done said some stuff that was absolutely incredible. I'll try to touch on and going all the way back to Alvin and kind of work my way back up to Charlie. One of the things I wrote down, and I said, showing up as your true self requires you to be comfortable with yourself. And when you're comfortable with yourself, you have to be comfortable spending time with yourself. You know what I mean? We were talking about, it's hard to show up as your true self if you can't spend time with you. I mean, think about how often you're distracted by TV, radio. I know people that cannot sit in silence. Like literally just can't. I mean, I want you to do nothing, just sit. Take 20 minutes and I want you to just think. There's people that can't do it. They have never spent time with themselves. You know what I mean? How can you trouble your true self if you don't know your true self? You know, I wrote down here, in order to get closer to yourself, it takes reflection. In order to see reflection, you must spend some time by yourself in the mirror, because if other people around, they'll start making excuses for your shortcomings and faults. We'll start fixing it. Oh, it's okay. It's all right. But when you look really close in the mirror by yourself, there's no one to tell you it's all right. That's when your true self, that's when you can help fix it. You can see everything. Oh man, I didn't know I had this right there. That's when you fix the stuff, is when you with yourself. And that's how you show up as your true self. The other thing I wrote down is, while you all were talking, is that we were talking about decisions. Every yes is a no. Every yes is a no to something. If you say yes to drinking water, you saying no to dehydration. If you say yes to going left, you said no to going right. Raymond, you said yes to taking time in the morning for yourself is no to getting up to the emails. And I mean, every yes is a no to something. Every single yes. Yes to working out is a no to obesity. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand. We just never think about the other side of the coin. Every yes is a no. So I was like, wow, as you were talking, it dawned on me that every time we say yes, we're saying no to something. And I'm almost sure that it goes both ways. If you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. The question is, what is that other thing? You know what I mean? That's the part we don't get. Your no is a yes to something. The question is, what is that? You know? And I think once we identify that and begin to grow and can become our truer self, and someone, I don't know who was mentioning your tank being full, but I think when your tank is full, it's much easier to give of your true self when you can give from your abundance and not from your need. You know what I mean? It's easier for me to hand you $5 if I got $100 over, but it's a whole lot easier to give you $5 if I need my $5. You know, if I'm at 95, I need 100 to pay my bills. If I got 200, I'll be like, oh, here, take a 5. I only got 80. You ask me if I'm like, man, what am I not gonna pay? So I think once we understand our true selves and get to where we understand our true self, then we can flow in that abundance of our being. And it's always easier to give people truly from that overflow or from that abundance. You're not giving from a deficit. You're not giving from a need. I have built this up to give. And then one of the things Alvin said, and I'll close with this, is he talked about the legacy. And you're right. I think as we get older, we just naturally should be transitioning from destiny to legacy. And if you're not, those are the selfish people that you see still trying to do the same stuff they were doing at 20. It should be your natural transition to get to the point of, I'm no longer forcing to get ahead. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna leave behind. What is my impact on people to come? What am I changing in the world? What's my contribution? I think we should naturally transition to, that's the way it should be. Your natural transition should be from destiny to legacy. I think if you find someone older that's always talking about that, man, my dad, you'd be like, now, wait a minute, what does this mean? I mean, I believe it so much. I just had the first grandchild. I call my first grandkid, well, he's my only grandkid now, I call him the legacy. I'll be like, there's the legacy. When I see him, there's the legacy, come here. I already done declared, because I know what it means. You are the legacy. No matter how we go about this, my yeses and nos are going to create some impact in his life that's going to leave some form of me, not only for now, but after I'm gone. And so I'm trying to make sure I am intentional and my impact show up as my true self and able to give to him from my abundance so that it can be true and pure without the inhibitions and things of life and me trying to cut corners and not able to give him all that I should give him because it takes away from my own space and my own need. I want it to be from the abundance so that I can give it freely. All right, I'll pass the mic from there.
Awesome all around. So I love the concept of eliminate, Ray. And that's part of you not checking your phone, is you being intentional or even wanting to increase your intentionality. The one thing, a lot of people will complain, a lot of the average person will complain about social media, and a lot of the platforms now will let you know how many hours you've been spending on there, or how many, they've stopped doing likes now. You can't, if you don't want to show you all the likes, and it shows you how much the social media has really revealed how much psychological effect it has on people at the end of the day. And I find social media like a gun. I find technology like a gun. A gun is literally a piece of iron and metal, whatever it might be, and it lies there inert until the user picks it up and does something, saves a life or takes a life. One of the two will happen. And we can call it dangerous, or we can call it useful. I find social media useful because the reason why I'm saying this is you have control over your schedule, Ray, and you're implementing that control. That man that I was coaching who says he never has time, he has to answer, he doesn't have to answer the phone. You're teaching people how to call you when they have an emergency. It's their version of an emergency. Right? If all three of you have an emergency and you call it I feel lonely. That's an emergency. And you call me. Every time you call me, I answer. Now, it's my emergency. But it's really not an emergency per se. You're constant control. I find social media, I don't have to answer it. I'm on there a few times. I answer a couple, replies, but I don't get caught in the, 45-minute, 90-minute scrolling because I got on. Now I blame social media for being the distraction. So again, those are being intentional. I'm intentional about how I surf that thing. And I'm very intentional about how the minute I start to feel loss of control when I'm surfing, I get off. And loss of control means being judgmental, means comparison, means I'm starting to, look at and judge how someone's posting. That's me. That's going off course for me. So being intentional. I was just thinking about I was trying to find online. I usually remember it, but I don't remember it now. But it's a term in psychology, and it's an effect. And it's when you speak into somebody how you want them to become, no matter what they're showing you in their behavior in the moment. And so just think about that. You were known as a lazy kid. Was that correct? Was that the way? Yeah. Okay. See, at that time, you didn't like the cold on your fingers, your feet. It just didn't feel good. Now, in that moment, and we all do it, I'm not blaming anybody. We do this unconsciously at times. We got to be I'm mindful of it. I may still do it. Your parents and your sisters, brothers said, you're lazy. Well, that became in that moment, it became what you thought was true. So you weren't actually a lazy kid. You just didn't like the cold. It's a big difference. I didn't like the cold. I didn't want to be here. I enjoyed the warmth of my homeland and so on. That was a real story. You might have been a very industrious kid, but a couple of suggestions, couple of, labeling you, it became your moniker. And then you may have searched your mind now and went, at times when decisions to be made about doing so, I'm a lazy kid. And then it became a truism because they spoke into you how they saw it. And maybe it was what they thought they saw. But it was really behind it was I just didn't like the cold. So what's happening now, as you're saying, is you're on layering that on truth. And now really, I'm a very industrious person. I love but I just didn't like that. I wasn't ready for that. Now I'm ready for it as I get older. And so anyways, I just find that if you speak into someone the way you want them to become, not what they behave like in the moment, they end up eventually evolving into, just like any leader watching this, same thing at work. Like one of my identities, as you all know, is I call myself the gold miner. Right, as a leader, because the gold miner sifts through what looks like stones and looks for the diamonds. So, that's the label. So everything's a micro decision. And I'm wondering, and I love what Al said about the coin. If you look at the coin, if I flip the coin, it's gonna be heads or tails, but it's the same coin. Yes and no are the same way. There's same parts that coin. You can't have one without the other. So yes, if you do say yes to, if you say after this call and you're supposed to work out and you didn't, well, you did make a decision. You did make a decision that today I will give way to whatever else that follows. Maybe easier to say no to something again, or maybe saying yes to as inactivity, whatever it might be, but everything's a micro decision. And then to be yourself, it really does take you getting over this idea of disappointing people. And that's an external thing. If you choose not to answer your phone at a certain time, that's a personal decision, but the caller may take it personal that you didn't answer your phone. When it's not personal, it's just it's just a decision by you that time that I'm going to respect my time and I'm not in that space. So, but that takes a lot of courage for you to go, okay. At my home, nothing goes on before 10 a.m. No TV, no nothing. Everyone understands that. It's amazing. I'm very pleased and surprised that everyone respects that. No matter what, it doesn't go on. And so when in Rome, you do as Romans do. And that rule has become a very strong rule. So everyone respects it. And it just for me, it creates a calm in the morning. I just couldn't imagine wake up and you throw that on to have a background noise as people are getting ready to leave the house. Meanwhile, it's suggesting unconsciously madness and mayhem as you enter the world, the chaos. Last night, and it's the same repetitive news. You'll hear it again at noon. You'll hear it again at 10, 11, 12. You'll hear it again. But with it compounding, it seems like it's a real emergency out there. Like this world's coming. Where's this world going to? It's going great, actually. It's getting better. Of people of color, we know it's getting better. But if you listen to the daily stuff, you'll think it's, where's it going to the vaccine, and it'll work itself out. So yes, I think again, force multiplying, going back to the point where you started, leaders, force multipliers. In order to become that, you must master everything we just talked about. And it's not a big thing. It's literally just, as you said, simplicity, Ray. I was thinking about that, simplicity. The idea that you look at complex systems. My car, the other day, the way I was thinking about it was I was cleaning off my car. And I have a, 2020 car, 2021, something like that. Anyway, it's a brand new car. And the technology, as I'm cleaning it off, I'm looking at the technology on it, the little sensors that tell me everything about this thing. It can park itself, the whole thing, right? And when you're looking at the complexity that we've got now with cars, where it used to be just, crank it, turn, and it started with the crank, and the window you have to roll up. You don't have to do that anymore. It's somebody is now telling me the Tesla, you can, and it drives, it parks itself in a parking spot, can pull itself out. The complexity. But all we do is we press a button. They got it down to such simplicity. Nature is the same way. All we do as humans is we get up and we go to bed and do some stuff in between. But in the background, there's all these peaks or billions of bits of information happening, and refining, and urine's being produced, and acids are being balanced, and hearts beating. You don't even know how that's even working. Pupils are dilating with the light coming in, and it's the complexity. But all we do is we get up and go. So, but that comes down to mastering the complexity. So you eventually get to simplicity. And that's when you become a force multiplier. You can't become, when you first learn martial arts, you're not a force multiplier, you're just chaotic. As a Shihan or a high level 8th degree, 10th, 12th, one master makes everything look so simple. They just move you along and you're part of their puppet. They just play with you because they make it look so simple because they've mastered the complexity. So that is force multiplier. In order for you to become one, everything we talk about, you must master that. In order to one day, and be patient. If we're blessed with time, one day we do become that figure, that force multiplier. But for now, it's just bumbling along, right? Every master was once a disaster. All right, so that's my input. You can take that and run with that.
It amazes me how every single week, how what Al says, Dr. Charlie says, Alvin says, is all interconnected. It's almost like they thought about it together. They kind of written it down. together, because it's so true. All of this is all interconnected. And as we understand one, it gives us better understanding of the next. And once we understand all of these really complex but simple concepts, in the end, life changes. I want to go back to something that Al said when he talks about making a transition from destiny to legacy. I know for me, that has been, now I get it. Okay, I've been getting that now for the past 2 years but before that, it was a huge challenge for me, because I was focused on destiny, and I equate destiny, let's say for me, is that I was actually going towards a certain goal, but I wanted to help people all the time. Okay, help people all the time. And then I had to make a transition and start thinking about what legacy means. And I realized that I'm not here to help people. I'm here to impact people. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. So if I have $100, okay, and out of the goodness of my heart, an urgent situation happens and this person absolutely needs my help, and I give the $100, thinking to myself, hey, it's all good. Like I'm strong enough. I'll figure it out. I'll make back my $100, right? I don't need them to give me anything back. I'll just give the $100. But if I do this all the time, then what happens is that, how can I put myself in a position where I can actually overflow, okay, and help so many people? So I'm not making any impact. I'm really just helping one people. And am I really helping them? Because maybe did I equip them to make that $100, or am I just giving the $100 all the time because I feel bad and I feel like I need to absolutely help people right now, right? It's urgent. But when you think of legacy now, and when you don't just look at today, but you look long term, then you start to separate things. And that was my biggest challenge. And now I finally got it. I'm so happy, but I had to really surround myself, and I had to challenge myself on that thinking that, oh, money is not a good thing, this, that, right? And now, as I'm thinking of legacy, I'm thinking of impact, and I'm like, you know what? I have to make as much money as I can, okay? I have to do as much as I can so I can actually really impact people. I can be like, okay, now we're gonna create this that's really gonna help people move forward. Why? Because we're at a place where we have more than enough. We have more than enough where we're not stressing on if we're even gonna eat ourselves, so we can only focus on, doing more and truly making an impact. So when I think of legacy, that's really what I think of. It's not just you, it's not just now, but it's tomorrow also. It's bigger scale, it actually gets things to move forward. So that's a big concept for me. And I remind myself of that. And when I see new leaders, I know a lot of them struggle with that, especially in the Black community, in the Black community coming from us, is that like they don't necessarily understand what money is. And when it starts to rise up, if they come from a certain place, then that chatter is gonna start where, oh, well, you're changing, you're not hanging out with us, you're not doing this for us. No, he's thinking bigger scale. It actually wants to change things for real, which is why he needs to push to be that much more successful, because someone else is gonna do. Okay? And that other person is not gonna give back the same way that person will give back and reinvest. So that's a big thing. Now, we spoke also about speaking to someone about what they can be, which is super, super important, because even I can go back, even as a child. I remember when I heard that I was lazy, let's say, everything around me suggested that I was. Right? It did. I don't even argue it. I was. It suggested that I was, but deep down inside, I despised that word. Right? I was like, everything suggests that I am that, but I feel like I'm not that. I don't think that I am that. So how can I not be that? How can I take away this feeling? Because I know for sure I'm not that, right? So I had to speak it to myself, okay? If you don't hear it from other people, you have to speak it to yourself. But now after that, when we talked also about getting over the idea of disappointing people, okay, is that if you want to make an impact, you're going to disappoint certain people. Okay, like we just said, certain people, you're going to start to separate. And people don't like that, right? So you have to speak to yourself, but you also have to see yourself as what you can be. Okay, because there's always going to be that pull, okay, telling you that something you're doing is off, something you're doing is wrong. No, it's just so much different than what other people can comprehend. So as you see yourself as what you can be, and as you speak to yourself about what you can be, that you can make these decisions and you can know the truth. You can know the truth, because if we are force multipliers, we are that gun, right? And we are that gun that can do good or bad. But every people that surround us, they might not realize it, but they are a gun also, right? They are a gun, and we can either teach them to do good with it or bad with it. The Pygmalion effect, I'll definitely look into that. So yeah, as a force multiplier, as I walk around now, I'll just see myself as a gun. How am I using this gun today? And as I'm looking at other guns, I can understand, okay, this gun can try to hurt me, maybe unknowingly, okay, or they can do good with it. But if I know who I am, if I see myself the way I know I can be, if I talk to myself the way I can be, there's no bullets that can really hurt. I can just multiply this goodness and turn every gun that comes across me into something positive, I guess. So this is me, and I'm passing the mic.
Yeah, to Al's point on legacy, and it's such an important topic to cover, because I think many people go through life and not really contemplate the legacy that they're leaving. And for me, it's so important to be able to impact people that I'll never meet, right? Family members that I never meet, and beyond that. And that's, to me, what legacy is all about. I mean, we talk on this call so many weeks about the impact of Thomas Edison or Martin Luther King. Never met us, right? But those people have had significant impacts on how we approach life and live life. And so that is, life of living, that is a life, they live lives of significance, right? And the things that they were doing were very important. So I think when we keep that in mind, legacy in mind, along with really being true to ourselves and finding our true self, that the marriage between those two is really important as far as setting the tone and setting the direction of the processes we take every day, the thoughts, the actions, the steps that we undertake each and every day in order to achieve those two very important goals. Is being true to ourselves, finding our true self, and then once we're always becoming, I think, our true selves, but then when we are that gives us the best opportunity to have impact, right? To leave a lasting legacy. And legacy is so many things, right? I mean, Mother Teresa left such a legacy, but it wasn't a legacy that had anything to do with her wealth, right? But she gave abundantly to people on this planet, and the ripple of that abundance of her caring of others is, we're still seeing those ripples. So that there's just so many examples that we can really look at and learn from in order to set our feet in the right direction. And I think we can all have an impactful legacy. That's something that's out there for all of us, but we have to make that choice. And we've talked about making a choice this entire message today. And it does come down to those choices. And every choice that we make is going to have a level of significance on our ability to positively impact others and leave that lasting legacy. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Well, I want to comment on, I think everybody hit on a little bit of Ray's story. And, Ray, you were talking about how they were saying you were lazy or you didn't really want to do anything. And I wrote down, I said, we have to understand that we cannot make a judgment about someone until we see them in their environment. That's the key. We can't make a judgment about anything about someone's true self until we see them in their environment. Usually the problem is we're making a judgment on people from our environment. You know what I mean? So if we're in Canada, we're looking at Ray, that boy lazy. I bet you wouldn't be lazy in Jamaica. It's nice and warm. You're like, why won't Ray come in the house? We're tired. Because we're trying to judge you from our environment. You know what I mean? And I don't know that you really understand anyone's true self until you see them in their environment. I mean, it's like they say, if you saw a fish out of water, you're like, that thing, how does it get around? Yeah, until you jump in the water with the fish, you can't keep up. Just the fish is thinking the same thing. Clunky human. I mean, think about how we see things. And I'm like, when you see something in this environment, then its true self, some of that, its true self will come to light. And I think part of what we do as force multipliers is help people get to their true environment. We help people get to where they're supposed to be so that they can grow, so that they can flourish, you know what I mean? And then other people will see it. The goal is either move them to their environment or help them change the current environment into something that's more suitable for them to do what they need to do. If not, we're all sitting around looking at doing that they did to you. Raymond don't want to do nothing. He's just trying to get home. Yeah, it's because it's cold. It had nothing to do with your desire to do anything. It was simply, it's cold out here. I mean, but think if you just move you to a different climate, everybody's role change. Like this, he won't stop. But it's all environmental. And I think how often, while you were saying it and we were talking, I was thinking, how many times have I made a decision or a judgment or come to a conclusion about something when the truth is I'm looking at it from my environment. This is a great place for me. You know what I mean? We said a long time ago, me and Charlie talked about it. You can't grow cactus in Kansas. There's a place for cactus to grow. So if you put a cactus in Kansas, these cactus don't grow. They sold me bad plants. No, it's not the right environment. And how do we judge the cactus or the person that sold it to you when you're just in the wrong place? So we either got to create a greenhouse so that a cactus can grow and set the climate so that it can flourish, or move back to the desert. Then it's amazing. Your sunflowers are dying, your cactus, sunflowers were doing great. Yeah, it's in Kansas. Put sunflower in Arizona. Things change, you know what I mean? So as we were talking about, I was like, we got to get to the point where we, as a force multiplier, we help people get to their environment, or at least create an environment that's conducive to their growth without judgment. Because we don't really know. I don't think we know that you're out of place until you get older. I mean, I don't think, I honestly don't think resources help you become greater. I think resources allow you to explore different environments until you find your home. So it isn't that Tiger Woods, he has some natural God-given talent, but I don't think we ever would have known Tiger Woods if his parents didn't have the resources to get him to a golf course. You didn't think about if Tiger grew up in the inner city poor, he probably we'd never heard of Tiger, because there would have been no golf clubs for Tiger to show at 2 and 3, look what I can do. So I think we have to be careful, because that's the whole reason for getting to the resources, is so that we can explore all those different environments. And really, that's what you're trying to do when you create the legacy, whether it be your children or grandchildren. How do I create place and space for you to explore everything you can until we figure out what it is your place, and then you will thrive naturally because you're going to be drawn to your place. You know? So that's what I say. I'll pass the mic.
All right, great point. So a couple of things came out of that. This is a side thing. It's Ray, when you said, you know, you want to make as much money so you can leverage that to help as many. And I just put here, you want to make as big an impact, because sometimes money could be land, money could be steel, as much steel as I can, you know, it changes different ways. And your voice, like for instance, go back to that quote, love that quote, Bible quote that says, your gifts will make room for you. You know, you look at Dr. Charlie, for instance, now he's a force multiplier, because before he was searching, you know, sifting through the noise, and now he's found his place, and his gifts has made room for him, because he's now a force multiplier, because he's gotten the simplicity, closer to simplicity. Every day it's an unfolding. So, you know, leveraging that gift. And I'm thinking about switching to the word dichotomy, is what I looked up. So them calling you lazy at the age you were at created a dichotomy. You know, here you are, two opposing, you hated the word, that you came to hate the word lazy. However, in your mind, you were wondering if they were right, kind of searching for opportunities to prove it sometimes. You know, and even some things that you even loved, if they kept saying it over and over again, some things you even loved, you even found it hard to even do them, because I'm supposed to play this character that they gave me. And so anyways, it created a dichotomy in your mind. And so in NLP, they have something called when you're talking about language, they talk about your surface structure and your deep structure. So surface structure is what someone tells you about them or about their problem, and the deep structure is the stuff they left out that fills in the rest of the blanks. So the surface structure was like, oh, Raymond, it's just a lazy kid. That's the surface structure. The deep structure is, no, Raymond, he just doesn't like cold, so he doesn't like to go out. You know what I mean? Like that's why he doesn't like that. He doesn't enjoy the cold, so he doesn't go out. So it tends to look like he's trying to avoid shoveling. But as Al said, if shoveling was replaced to moving the sand, you know, to a new hill, he's all over that. So yeah, so it's amazing how many people I find run around when I coach them with surface structure language that they've typically been given, or by culture or by someone close to them, but the real deep structure is where the real meat is, and you have to get to that. The stuff they left out. You know, my father didn't love me, or I'm not good enough for another man, or whatever it might be, says the woman. However, she didn't realize that her dad was screwed up, trying to fix his own stuff. She just was born into his mess, and he didn't know how to speak. His language was terrible. So he said some things or showed her some things that weren't effective communication. She bought it, or maybe he didn't show up because he didn't know how to show up. He wasn't shown how to show up by someone before him. And now he's doing it because that's truth to him. That's how I show up. That's how I show love or whatever. He may have hit his partner because when he was growing up, he saw that. And then if his mom stayed with his dad, then it must be how it works. So this is my choice, So anyways, that's the surface language. The deep structure is what we got to get to. And so it creates a dichotomy with people. And so rolling this back to the initial where we started is to become a force multiplier. We have to unravel so many surface structure communication and experiences to get to the deep structure. And then you're able to become a force multiplier. Only then will you be able to truly. Yesterday, Bob Proctor passed away. I don't know if anybody knows Bob Proctor, legend in the speaking game. He passed away yesterday, 87 years old, right? So he was a force multiplier, became a force multiplier, affected millions of lives. Just the way he spoke, there'll never be another like him. The way he's, so this is one of the other reasons why I'm so patient about my development. I'm a very patient person about how I develop and how I grow. Because I know I'm constantly evolving. I'm stripping away all the stuff that society told me I should be, or having an influence on me until I get to that position. Then when I show up, I will automatically be a force multiplier without any effort. I will be the Grand Master, where it's less effort and more influence. So anyways, in summary, everything we talked about today is the things we have to work on. That's the base to get to force multiplier, which is at the top. That's me.
Great stuff. Everything's been said, honestly, everything's been said. The only thing I'll just add to is something you just said, Alvin, when you said your gifts will make room for you. That is so true. That is so true. We all have gifts, and it's about letting them, making room for us. I just want to challenge everyone listening to. I challenge myself on that too. As a reminder, every day when we talk about environment, like Al said, when you're in your own environment, your gifts will naturally, just blossom as much as possible. They just will. Sometimes you won't be put in your own environment, okay? You won't grow in your own environment. Then what do you do? What do you do? So we keep talking about time all the time, how we have to be patient with our own self-development, whether you are in your environment or not, okay? The difference between a cactus, let's say, and a human being is that there are physical limits to what we can do. Like, I can't fly, right? Dr. Charlie can't fly. But as humans, we are also the ultimate adaptation machine. Okay, so no matter which environment you're put into, or you were born into, or you grew up into, give yourself enough time, work at it long enough, you can adapt to whatever environment. And as you continually give yourself more time, then you can shift the environment to something that's more suitable, that's more natural to you, and then you'll blossom even more. But I just want to remind people of that like, I'm not in Africa right now. I'm in Canada, and I'm out there. I'm shoveling snow. I'm cold. I'm all right. You know, right? So we can adapt to whichever environment we are into, but it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people want things to happen now, want things to happen too fast. We talked about how every 10 years, when you look at yourself, you'll see how much change you've done if you're into this process. Well, maybe that's what it takes, at least 10 years, right? Dive into it, be consistent, just keep at it, like Alvin said also, and then you naturally become that Yoda master, no matter the environment you're in. So that's really the only thing I could think of to add. It's just be patient with yourself. Think about all these concepts that we talked about today, and remember, you are the ultimate adaptation machine. You are. You know, no matter what environment you're in, as human beings, we can figure it out. People live in the desert. You know, people live in the desert. You know, there's no water, no food. They live in the desert for centuries, right? They figure it out. So that's what we are. That's our power as human beings, as leaders. Same thing. So this is me, and I'm passing the mic.
All right, those are great points, Ray. And as we close out today's discussion, as you were talking, it reminded me of a quote that said, "Bloom where you are planted," right? And so we all find ourselves in different spaces and stations. So as human beings, we do have that amazing power to adapt, and adapting in our current environment. And then when opportunity that we create presents itself, when it manifests, then we can move to an environment where we can flourish. However, before then, it's important to bloom where we're planted and not wait to, hey, when I get over here, when this happens, when that happens. No, go ahead and bloom where you're planted. Let your gifts be evident. And then from there, when you can get to a more favorable environment, then your gifts will flourish, and you can truly become a force multiplier. So with that, I will pass the mic.
Yeah, the conversation today was good. One of the things I wrote down was, and Alvin was talking about when he's talking about the teacher, and I was thinking, well, you got to move from conscious to subconscious, and you got to work on it so much that in decision time, your natural response is to show up as your true self. Like your default is true. You know, your default is multiplier. That has to be your default. So, and I think at some point you got to conscientiously work on it until it becomes your subconscious response. I'm gonna work on this until it becomes habit. Till my natural response is to be true. My natural response is to be multiplier. And I think and I think that's what it takes. You have to initially conscientiously work on it to make sure that it becomes who your subconscious default response is. Anytime anything shows up, you just naturally, that's who you are. Boom. My true self shows, boom. Without thinking about it, I think, I got to be true. Let me make sure I'm thinking. Your natural response becomes that thing. And I think that's where we have to get to. And like Charlie's point just now about the environment, right? You do have to figure out how to grow where you plant it. Build a greenhouse, run an irrigation system, do whatever you got to do to water the plant. But, like you said, they built Vegas in the desert, seems to be doing just fine. There's nothing there when it started. Somebody somewhere had a vision, you got a vision, you can make it happen. You can see it, you can do it, right? That's all it takes. So I say, if you see it, do it. I'll pass the mic to Al.
Yes, sirs. To close it out, then I'm gonna say let's move towards the art of doing less to leverage more. Less is more. You know, when I was in martial arts, the the height of being a teacher of an 8th degree, you know, master, true master. They, if you watch them, especially arts like Aikido, and where it doesn't involve a lot of aggressive movements like, say, Taekwondo or attacking offensive. When you look at those sports like Aikido and Hapkido, and there are a lot of using your force against you. And these masters are gray-haired, small, you know, people, and they just let the thing come to you. And I always envisioned, for me, aging meant that, like, the minute I always aim for wisdom, because with wisdom, you kind of go through life with a sense of equanimity is the word. Just traumas happen to you just like it happened to everybody else, but you just kind of just roll through because you understand life at that point. And that understanding leads to calm, leads to a sense of peace, equanimity, balance, because you know it's going to be okay. In the chaos, you are calm. So, and that's when you really hit force multiplier. You know, force multiplier can't be forced. It has to, you know, it's like they say, you don't pursue success, you attract it by the person you become. You know, you don't pursue anything, you attract it. Just become that person. So that's my goal every day, is to work on me, and the abundance will come to me once I get there. I know the things that I desire in life aren't here yet because I'm not ready for them yet. I'm not prepared or ready for them. So I'm okay with that. And so I'll let them come to me. And with that, that would be my word, actually, to wrap us up. My word is equanimity.
My word is simply to know. So to know what legacy I want to leave behind, what impact I want to make, to know who I am, to know what I can be. And yeah, no matter the situation, no matter my mood, I get to go back to what I know, right? Sometimes we run into every direction, we react, we fight or flight. But when you're intentional, when you go back into the moment and where you just focus on what you truly know, then you get to see the truth, and you get to do what's important and what has significance. So yeah, to simply know all the things that we talked about today, which we know, right? But we so easily forget. Yeah, just to know and remind myself as it. That's the word for the week. So amazing conversation today. We were live on YouTube for the first time. So that's pretty cool. I'll actually send you guys the link right now in the chat. If you want to go back, I'm going to test it out. We're going to test it out, you know, but as usual, wish you all an amazing week. Took a bunch of notes. I love these Sunday morning wisdom conversations for sure.
Likewise, awesome to be here, guys, and wishing you all a fantastic week.
Same to you.
All right, glad to be back. All right,
For sure.
I can
Welcome
breathe.
back.
Yeah, exactly. Take a breather. And Ray, thanks for taking that step, because I was wondering about this YouTube, how it worked, and now you took that step in that frontier for me. All right, awesome.
Let's go.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Hey, guys, peace. love.
and soul.
Oh,